C in the dialysis unit. The only thing that gets isolated is B, or if they've got MRSA, or if they've got TB. But Hep C is on the floor. And what we do is when we find out their hepatitis B status, they do get started on Hep B vaccination. Some of the patients never, unfortunately, convert. They always will have, never have enough antibodies. So those patients do have to be, once they're isolated, limited to certain machines in the unit so they never come into contact with a machine or patients that may potentially convert to hepatitis B. So, but yeah, so if you see the isolation room being used, you can pretty much guarantee that the patient's probably got hepatitis B. We did have one in the North County who recently died. That room's free again, but that room only gets used for that. And then just the other thing about dialysis clinics, out of all healthcare workers, it's actually the highest transmission of Hep B's and C's and diseases within healthcare workers, because highest incidence of blood splash and needle sticks. Just the nature of the job, you're dealing with so much blood. I had an incident once. I've had a needle stick in dialysis. I had two. Patients moving inadvertently, or just being an idiot, because some of our patients, as you know, we're human. We have personalities. Moved and the needle went sliced my finger. Same as if you're in the hospital, you get permission from the patient to draw blood, and you have that 3-month period, and you kind of hope that you don't get anything. But fortunately, for the most part, you do know what your patients have. I also got a machine once that exploded. It went through the pressure test. That was an interesting one, and it was an isolation patient, so we were fully gowned, and it was a prisoner, and it was a disgusting patient, and I'll never forget it. This wasn't here, this was in England, and the cartridge blew. You've got 250 cc's of blood in that, and meanwhile the pump's not going to stop. So the pump was still going, and it's pumping blood out of him, and it was flying everywhere. So I was like, and you can imagine the words that were coming out of my mouth at the time. So yeah. So that's kind of like a schematic of what's going on there. 2 baths is on the bottom. It's supposed to represent what we call the acid and the bicarb. We use bicarb as a buffer. The other bath has potassium and calcium, which we can alter depending on the patient's bloods. We can use a 0 potassium. That is if we know a patient has signs and symptoms of hyperkalemia, which usually means they come in, they've been vomiting, having diarrhea, and they just feel twitchy or weak and lethargic. We can pretty much guess that they've probably had a bad weekend, they're getting into something, or it's a holiday. Thanksgiving is Christmas, they're getting into potassium-rich foods. So basically, blood gets pumped out the patient. We have pressure monitors all the way around the machine. We need to know the pressure that we're pulling the blood from the patient, because obviously there's limitations on that. You don't want to have too much pressure pulling blood out of that vessel or out of the catheter. So we limit it to around 220 millimeters mercury pressure. And then basically it goes through the dialyzer. The dialyzer has the blood going in one way, and the dialyzer flows the opposite direction, and it helps drag all those waste products. And pressure is applied on the membrane to actually decide how much fluid is being removed. Because if you just allowed it to keep going, you could pull off a litre of fluid in 15 minutes if you wanted to. So the way the machines are set up, they actually apply pressure against the membrane, and it's all dialed in. In the old days, we used to have to calculate it. We'd have to say what dialyzer we're using, so we know what the coefficients are of that dialyzer. We'd go on a little table and say, okay, the patient's got 3 kilos to lose. I need to have a little dial, and I need to dial in what we call the TMP, transmembrane pressure, to figure out what fluids come up. Now it's easy. You just put the numbers in the machine and it figures it out. So it's kind of nice. And no more having a jug. I remember we used to even have jugs sometimes, and we used to use a roller clamp. Oh yeah, they're losing too much fluid, we used to do that. So that was the really old machine we used in cases of emergency when we ran out of dialysis machines.
Do we still reuse the dialyzer?
No, yeah. In this county we don't have reuse. But in the place I worked in Camarillo, they reuse the dialyzer, and you get up to about 20 uses out of the dialyzer. They use a horrible chemical process using aniline. It's nasty. or they use formaldehyde, nasty chemicals. So glad I don't work there anymore. But yeah, basically they test the dialyzer to make sure that the membranes will stay intact, that they can take the pressures that they get. And we used to have to also look to see how many blood clots, because there's so many clots on the dialyzer, we can't use them. They used to want us to use more heparin. Those patients definitely got more heparin because you were trying to keep the membranes free. So yeah, they're nasty. And they used to reuse the arterial lines too, which I was shocked at. This was my first experience of dialysis in America. Never did any of that in England. I'm like, you want me to do what? Okay, and the problem with that was, I had to make sure that when you were putting that dialyzer and lines on with that patient, that the names matched, that was that patient. So you're running into so many risks of perhaps cross-contamination within the unit. I just think it's bad. So the heparin usually goes in.
You're reusing them, but just per patient, not
well, they have
patient
their
A's
own
getting
name
patient
assigned.
B's.
Yeah, they'd have their own name assigned and on the lines. And then they would go back there, and then the technician back there would basically put them on this big machine, would rinse all the blood out, then they would put them into either a formaldehyde or a remnant solution. And then that would sit there, and it would actually incubate in like a heater. Then they would then rinse all that stuff out, and then they would be packed up. And then we used to have to check that that name on that dialyzer and the lines matched the patient we were putting them with. And we had to sign off against it. There was because two people.
Costly to replace? Is that why they did that?
They thought they were saving money. I
Crazy
mean,
process.
I think they figured out really, like by the time they were employing the tech and everything,
Yeah.
they actually figured out the dialyzers, you're better off just doing single use. There used to be a claim that the patients got less allergic reactions. The membranes now are a lot better, but in the old days they used to use cellulose membranes, and the patients used to get a lot of reactions, anaphylactic reactions. So reuse actually came around because of that. They were looking at, because when a patient's blood goes through, it actually will coat it with proteins, and those proteins would remain, so when the patient went back on the machine, it would recognize those proteins. So.
But wouldn't the formaldehyde and the chemicals be also like absorbed into the blood?
Well, that was the thing. It's like, and there was a very strict like rinsing processes, and like you test the dialyzers. So I would like put the dialyzer in the machine. I'd have to put like a litre of fluid through it. I would then have to test to make sure that the strips were clear. Yeah.
Nobody ever got caught.
And the new thing about it was I needed 2 people to check that dialyzer, and you were in a rush, and you were like, okay, yeah, and then it's constantly all that time in the dialysis.
Yeah.
It's one of the busiest places that I'll ever work. It's nuts. It really is. And then heparin, of course, if the patient doesn't get heparin, it gets put into the blood lines before it goes to the dialyzer. We actually prime the circuit with a little bit of heparin just to get it coating those membranes. And then it basically goes out. There's an air detector because dialysis patients are at risk of getting air into their lungs and then into them. And then so there's an air detector, and then basically goes back to the patient, and then the waste heads out down the drain. Just the fact when you're looking at water usage. So the dialysis machines have to use the purest of water. If you ever go into the back of the dialysis unit and see that RO system, it's incredible, the tanks. Because it has to be free of chloramines, because anything in the water as a contaminant comes into contact with that patient's blood, they're going to have a reaction. We actually we have to do chloramine testing every 4 hours on the big loop to check.
So is that like Arrowhead water, or?
No, we have Arrowhead's dirty. That would
the
not even
best
be able to
water
touch.
you'll ever have.
No, it's literally, it's the cleanest. They have big carbon scrubbing tanks. I mean, huge RO system. But give you an idea of water usage, this is one of the reasons why they were fighting to get the Templeton unit opened, because of how much discharge was going to happen into the Salinas River, because it's also now containing some salts into it. The dialysis flow runs on average between a minimum of 600 mils a minute to 800 mils a minute. Those dialysis machines get switched on when the tech comes in. Definitely by 3:30, you have 15 machines up and running. We put them in minimal flows at that point at 500 mils a minute. Those dialysis machines don't get switched off until about 6 o'clock at night. So you're constantly running. So I'll let you do the math on that. It's a lot. It's a heck of a lot.
Plus RO is wasteful.
Yeah,
So-
you did
Yes.
like 6
Yeah.
to 1 of, I
Yeah.
don't know what the
So,
liter or
that
something.
is-
It's crazy.
That is a lot of water. That is how much a dialysis unit uses. And we do try to be thoughtful and put it down to what we call minimum flows in between patients. The machines will actually do that, but still, it's 500 mils a minute. It's a lot of flow. So that kind of shows you what the dialyzer looks like inside. So it's kind of like basically, I can't remember how many exactly, but it's quite a few thousand little filaments that run through, and they can get clogged. But the blood basically enters from the bottom, it goes up in the dialyzer, it goes down this way. It's a counter-current flow because it also helps like drag the solutes across. So it's a semi-permeable membrane. The membranes, definitely the technology's improved. We used to have a lot of problems with reactions, still do on some patients, it's very rare. You just usually have to either change the dialyzer, get them a different membrane, which is usually more expensive, or you can just flush extra saline through the dialyzer when we're setting it up. So like I say, the calcium potassium can be altered in the dialysate solution, and then the bicarb is what we use. In the old days, they couldn't stabilize bicarb, so we used to use lactate, because lactate will break down into so I think it's every 3 parts of lactate will break down to 1 part bicarb. Well, the problem is if you give a patient lots of lactate, they go into lactic acidosis, they actually started vomiting. So usually, when I first started dialysis, I remember like, oh, okay, get ready with the vomit bags, and you literally go around giving vomit bags because people would start throwing up because of it. A lot nicer than it used to be.
Great job.
Yeah. Yeah, and the blood pressures are going, and then we were constantly putting their feet up and putting them on the side, and yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, that's kind of, again, just kind of showing like the solutes, the diffusion across the membrane. You've got the red blood cells. Red blood cells won't pass across because they're too big, but vitamins will pass across. They're water soluble, they'll pass across. We tell our patients, if you're going to take vitamin supplements, don't take them before dialysis. Pain medicines, when if they take them, will dialyze across. Quite a few medications actually will dialyze across.
So if someone's in chronic pain and takes pain medication all the time, that's like really painful
Yeah.
for 4 hours.
Yeah. Well, and they can get rebound as well. I think you're better off if they're on fentanyl patch, or if they're really in chronic pain, get them to work with their pain clinics. If we have chemo patients that have gone into renal failure. We used to be able to give, what was the medication we used to give? Nuben, which used to work on opiate receptors. Dr. Wolf used to have it at the clinic. It was lovely for patients like that. The big corporations don't want to do that. It's like, no, that's like extra, that's outside of the world of dialysis, so we don't do it. I haven't worked in a clinic there in Auckland, but I know travel nurses saying, oh yeah, they'll say they need to go to the bathroom. What they're doing is they're jacking up so they can get their fix because they're getting wiped out, or they want to come off dialysis early so they can get their fix. Some of them will try and pop on the unit as well, and I've had patients do that too.
Halfway.
Yeah. So yeah, drug addicts are really difficult to deal with on dialysis. So medications that we use at dialysis unit, we've got heparin to prevent blood clotting throughout the treatment. Just to let you know, half-life is about 2 hours, but it increases with the size of the dose. We really try to use minimal heparin these days. It used to be in the past, a patient would get about at least 10,000 units. We give them 1,000 an hour, 2,000 an hour, big bolus, 5,000. Really try to limit that now. Anemia management with the estrogen and IV iron we also use. Zemplar is the medication that we use for the vitamin D. We give that in the lines, IV. And then protein supplements, dietitian really tries to get involved and make sure that a lot of these old people, the unit opens and the first patients are on the machines by 4:30. So you've got these little old people coming in, exhausted, probably haven't had breakfast. So we really try to help them out and give them protein supplements as well. Benadryl, some of them get hooked on that, some of them just want it no matter what. They just want IV Benadryl, they'll try and say, can you push it fast? I don't know.
Why?
Because it gives a little bit of a buzz. And then they'll just... Yeah,
I've seen like
Benadryl overdose?
My chest hurts,
No, some of them will want it fast, like the prisoners. That when CMC had dialysis patients, yeah, they would love that, and they would love Lomatil. Little did I know about Lomatil. Lomatil actually is a controlled med. I have to count it in the hospital because it has, again, an opiate derivative in it. So I used to think, boy, you guys have a lot of diarrhea in CMC. You got some issues over there. No, he was pocketing the Lomatil. Again, don't have Lomatil anymore since Davida came in. But yeah, they get itchy, and again, it's to do with the calcium phosphate. So if the body, has this built-up of phosphate, you'll see dialysis patients like this itching. They have little lumps in the skin. Some of the ones that have been on dialysis for a while, if they've badly controlled their diet, especially Hispanics, because beans are high in phosphate. Say beans and cheese. Okay, so dairy and beans, super high in phosphate. They'll actually get deposits under their scalp, like little lumps. And some of them you might have seen them, like they might have picked and there's like red lumps. And they almost look like, they get MRSA infections because of it as well. MRSA was like pretty much high in dialysis patient population before anyone else. And we're worried really about VRE because vancomycin gets used a lot because we're trying to prevent infections on the catheters. So dialysis patients get bombarded with a lot of antibiotics. So they get a lot of drug resistance as well. And then of course we get the flu and the pneumonia vaccines. So central venous catheter, why would they choose that? Go through into accesses now. So basically, it's the advantage of the central venous catheter is it's quick. It can be done at the bedside. So the patient comes into the hospital, signs symptoms of acute renal failure, or CHF. They pop in the catheter, we start using it. And then that's usually a temporary line, and then they're going to go to a more permanent line which is tunneled under the skin, and then that can be used. It's usually...
Are you supposed to have heparin in the...
No, we'll go through that because they don't anymore. Oh, I'm going to hit that because I know this is the question. So yeah, they used to have heparin. You basically don't use it anymore because something called HIT happens, heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. Basically, people get antibodies to the heparin. And we don't want them to do that because we're trying to use heparin on the machine anyway. Very rarely happens. Sometimes we do have to dialyze using citrates because they've actually got antibodies to heparin. But we don't use it because they've actually managed to make catheters now with a little pressure valve. So when we pop the saline in, it actually creates like a little bit of pressure to create a bubble at the end so that the blood can't backflow into the catheter.
That's what I was asking, because we can use some of those lines, but just told that
unless it's labeled saying it's got heparin in it, you can use it. But whether it's got heparin or saline, you're going to pull back on that line anyway. And the amount of heparin that is in there, because it's all going to be a blood clot. I'll go through that in a minute. We'll go through lines. But basically, they tend to have saline in them now. The problem with them is, like I say, is one, the insertion. You really don't want someone that's CMC putting in a dialysis catheter, or centralized. Invariably, they usually cause a pneumothorax. I've had that happen. They can get arterial conscious hemorrhage, hematoma, embolisms, just because they didn't put in. Or if the line gets cracked, they used to use iodine solutions on them. They found that some solutions actually can crack the plastic, so the manufacturers say, no, use chlorhexidine. They usually will dictate what solutions to use on them, because if they've been in there for a long time, they can crack, and then air can get into the lines and get air embolisms.
It seems like that's the one that they get first.
Yeah, it is, and that's usually what it is.
Before they get their AV shot.
Right, and it is. It's because it's quick, it's instant. Because an AV fistula takes on average 3 months before use. Well, we need something to use in the meantime. But some patients don't want a complete needle phobic. They want to live with that. We had a lady for years and years would not go to a fistula or graft. She had a failed fistula years ago, put her off it, and then she was happy with her lines, but she exhausted everything. And we said, do you want to live? Do you want to at least try this? And we managed to get a different kind of line into it because they've now got pretty clever where, okay, your own blood vessels aren't good for use, but we can actually put something in like an artificial line, like a graft. But the new grafts are almost like, they're almost like vascular material. They're really smart, clever plastics that they're using now. They used to also use orming, like in carrots. So anyway, the good thing about them is they're not as efficient. You can't get the blood flow rates like you can usually. If we're getting 350 mils a minute blood flow, we're doing good. They also get these circulation issues because there's a limited distance for where the blood's going in, coming out of